AITA for exposing my wife's family after they called me a burden at dinner? I'm Leon, 37, and I had been married to Marissa for almost 7 years when I realized her family didn't just dislike me. They liked me exactly where they had placed me: quiet, useful, and grateful for a seat at their table. I'm not flashy. I compare prices at the grocery store even when I don't have to. I rinse out the coffee pot before bed because morning coffee tastes wrong when the carafe smells burned. I keep spare phone chargers in the junk drawer and fix loose cabinet handles instead of replacing the whole thing. I'd rather leave early than argue in front of people. For a long time, I told myself that made me mature. Looking back, it also taught people I could be disrespected without consequence. Marissa's family had always been polished in a way that made every room feel like a small competition. They noticed the brand of your watch, the restaurant you picked, the way you handed your card to the server. They never had to say, "You are not good enough." They were more careful than that. They said things with smiles. At first, it was small. At our first big family dinner after Marissa and I got engaged, her brother Trevor looked at the check and said, "Leon, you want us to give you a minute with the numbers, or should Marissa translate?" Everyone laughed. I laughed too because I was new, and laughing seemed easier than making the whole table uncomfortable. Marissa rolled her eyes at Trevor and said, "Stop." But she was smiling when she said it. Another time, her sister Sabrina asked if I had married into better wine. Her mother Diane said, "Marissa has always had expensive taste." Well, mostly. I looked at Marissa then. I expected her to say something, not start a fight, just something. Instead, she reached for the bread basket and said, "Mom." That was it. On the drive home, I told her the jokes bothered me. She sighed like I had asked her to cancel Thanksgiving. "You know they don't mean it like that," she said. "Then how do they mean it?" "They tease because they're comfortable with you." "Comfortable calling me broke?" "Leon, please don't make this bigger than it is." So I didn't. That became the pattern. Her dad, Richard, would ask if I needed help finding the cheapest thing on the menu. Diane would say things like, "Some women marry ambition. Some marry kindness. Both have value, I suppose." Sabrina would throw in a soft little laugh, like she was just observing the weather. Trevor was the loudest because Trevor had never learned the difference between humor and a cheap shot. "Must be nice," he said once, "having love and a payment plan." I remember looking down at my plate and hearing Marissa laugh. Not a big laugh. Not cruel enough for her to feel guilty. Just enough to join them. I told myself every family had their habits. I told myself Marissa was embarrassed and didn't know how to push back. I told myself if I stayed patient, eventually they would see I was a good husband. What I didn't understand was that they already knew. They just didn't value that unless it benefited them. The first time money moved through me and disappeared under Marissa's name, it was for Trevor. He called Marissa late one night. I was standing by the sink, washing 2 mugs, when I heard her voice change. "How much?" she asked. Then she walked into the bedroom and shut the door. When she came back out, her face was tight. "Trevor's in a bind," she said. "What kind of bind?" She rubbed her forehead. "He messed up timing on something. He needs help for a few weeks. He'll pay it back." I didn't ask too many questions. That was one of my flaws. I thought respecting Marissa meant not interrogating her about her family. We talked it through, and I sent part of the money to Marissa so she could send it to him with what she was contributing. Before I hit confirm, I asked, "Why don't I just send him my half?" She shook her head quickly. "He'll feel weird taking it from you. I'll send it, and we'll call it family help." I should have heard the warning in that sentence. Family help. No name attached. A few weeks later at dinner, Trevor slapped Marissa on the shoulder and said, "That's why we love you. Always saving the day." Marissa smiled. I waited. She didn't mention me. I didn't either. A couple of years after that, Richard and Diane had an emergency. It wasn't dramatic enough to change anyone's life, but it was urgent enough that Marissa got a late-night call and started whispering in the hallway. I heard Diane crying. I heard Richard in the background, angry and embarrassed. Marissa came to me with that same tense face. "They need help temporarily," she said. "I know you don't owe them anything." I almost laughed at that, because of course she knew. She knew exactly how they talked to me. But she looked genuinely scared for her parents, so I helped. Again, part came from Marissa. Part came from me. Again, it went through her. The next morning she texted me while I was making coffee. "Please don't bring it up later. Dad will make it weird." I stared at that message for a long time. Not thank you. Not I'll make sure they know we both helped. Just don't bring it up. I replied, okay. That was the kind of husband I thought I was supposed to be. Steady, quiet, not petty, not keeping score. But somewhere along the way, I started saving things. Not at first because I had a plan. I wasn't building a case to destroy anyone. I just needed proof that reality was happening the way I remembered it. A screenshot here. A bank transfer confirmation there. A message from Marissa asking me to keep quiet. A Venmo note. A date. A receipt for a large household expense I covered while she told her family she was handling everything. I made a folder on my laptop and named it something boring. Inside, I organized everything by year. I told myself it was only for my own peace of mind. Then I saw the family group chat. Marissa had a tablet she used around the house. One Saturday morning, she left it on the kitchen counter while she took a shower. I wasn't snooping. I was cleaning up breakfast, and a message preview popped up. Trevor, coupon king coming tonight, or is Marissa bringing her dependent? Then laughing emojis. I froze. Another message dropped in from Sabrina. Sabrina, Leon's smart. He knows a good arrangement when he sees one. Then Diane. Diane, be kind. Marissa chose stability in her own way. I stood there with a wet dish towel in my hand, feeling stupid and cold. Marissa came in with damp hair and saw my face. What? She asked. I pointed at the tablet. She glanced down, then snatched it up. It's jokes, she said. You let them call me your dependent? Leon, do you correct them when I'm not there? She looked away for half a second. That half second told me everything. Don't take screenshots of jokes, she said. I hadn't. That time. The jokes kept getting sharper because no one ever had to pay for them. At birthday dinners, someone would loudly offer to cover Leon's portion. At holidays, Richard would ask if Marissa wanted to sign my card too, since she was probably paying for the gift. Diane would pat my arm and say, "You have other qualities," as if she were complimenting a dog with one eye. And Marissa changed. At the beginning, she used to look uncomfortable. Then she started managing me instead of them. Please don't make it weird. Just let it go. It's one dinner. You know how they are. The night of Richard and Diane's anniversary dinner was supposed to be another one of those nights. Marissa spent an hour getting ready, checking her earrings in the mirror and asking if I was wearing the shirt she liked. You look nice, I said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. In the car, she said, "Can we have one normal night?" I looked over at her. Normal for who? She didn't answer. The restaurant was exactly the kind of place her family loved. Valet tickets. A wine list thick enough to need its own chair. Low lighting. Servers who spoke softly and made you feel like coughing would cost extra. Richard stood when we arrived, wearing that satisfied expression he always had when he was surrounded by people who knew his name or pretended to. Leon, he said, clapping my shoulder. Did Marissa let you look at the menu prices first? Trevor laughed before I even sat down. Careful, Trevor said. He might order water and split your appetizer. Marissa's hand brushed my back. To everyone else, it probably looked affectionate. To me, it felt like a warning. Diane kissed Marissa's cheek, then mine. We're so glad you both made it, she said. Marissa, you look beautiful. Leon, very practical shirt. Sabrina was already sitting with her phone beside her plate, one eyebrow raised like the whole world was disappointing but entertaining. The first half hour was all status talk. A cousin's new house. A vacation. Somebody's renovation. Trevor mentioned a place he and his girlfriend were looking at, then glanced at Marissa like they had already discussed it. I noticed that. Marissa didn't look at me. When the server brought wine, Richard made a show of ordering a bottle with the tone of a man who wanted the table to hear the price without him saying it. Then came the toast. He stood, lifted his glass, and talked about marriage. About partnership. About choosing someone who elevated you. Diane leaned into him, smiling proudly. Then his eyes landed on me. And maybe next year, Richard said, Leon can finally contribute like a real husband. The table burst into laughter. I felt Marissa's hand clamp around my knee under the table. For 1 second, I thought she was trying to comfort me. Then her fingers dug in. A warning. Don't. I looked at her. She kept smiling. Trevor lifted his glass toward me. Should we split this? Or is Marissa handling Leon's portion too? Sabrina put a hand over her mouth like she was trying not to laugh. Leon's smart. He knows a good arrangement when he sees one. Diane sighed sweetly. Some men bring financial security. Some bring calm energy. Both matter, I suppose. The laughter came again, softer this time, because even some relatives seemed uncomfortable. Evan, Marissa's cousin, looked down at his plate. He had made jokes before too, but that night he didn't laugh. I waited for Marissa. That was the saddest part. Even after years of this, some part of me still waited for my wife. She squeezed my knee again. Then she said, "Come on, Leon knows we're joking." Richard smiled. "Nobody said he was useless. We said he was lucky." Marissa laughed lightly, like she was smoothing a wrinkle out of the tablecloth. "It's not like he doesn't know I carry more of the weight," she said. That was it. Not the joke. Not Richard. Not Trevor. Her. The room tilted in a way I can still feel when I think about it. All those years, I had told myself Marissa was weak under family pressure. Maybe embarrassed. Maybe conflict avoidant. But sitting there, hearing her say it so easily, I understood something else. She liked the story. She liked being the generous one, the successful one, the woman gracefully carrying a husband who should be grateful. My silence had become part of her image. I set my fork down. The sound was small, but the table noticed. Marissa whispered, "Please don't make this a thing right now." I looked at her and said quietly, "You already did." Richard chuckled. "Careful, everybody. We found the sensitive number." Diane leaned forward. "Leon, honey, we tease because we love you." "No," I said. "You tease because you've been allowed to." The table went quiet. Marissa's smile tightened. "Leon," she said. I didn't raise my voice. That mattered to me. I didn't want to become what they could dismiss. Richard sat back, amused. "All right. Say what you need to say." I looked at him. "You said a man should contribute like a real husband." I said it in fun. "Then this will be fun too." Trevor muttered, "Here we go." I turned to him. "A few years ago, when you needed money and it came from Marissa, did you ever ask where all of it came from?" His face changed fast. Not enough for everyone to notice, but I noticed. Marissa's hand shot to my sleeve. "Don't," she whispered. I looked down at her hand until she removed it. "I'm not giving amounts," I said. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone over needing help. People need help. That was never the issue." Diane's expression sharpened. "Then what is the issue?" "The issue is that my money was family help when it was useful, but my name disappeared when it was time to brag." Richard's jaw moved. I continued, "Trevor, part of that transfer came from me. Marissa asked me to send it through her because you'd feel weird taking it from me." Trevor looked at Marissa. She didn't look back. I turned to Richard and Diane. "And when you had your emergency, the help Marissa sent wasn't only from Marissa. I covered part of it. The next morning, she texted me not to mention it because, and I quote, 'Dad will make it weird.'" Diane went pale in that controlled way wealthy people do when they are furious but still in public. Richard said, "That was private." I nodded. "It was. So were my finances, but that never stopped you from making them dinner entertainment." Sabrina let out a sharp laugh. "This is so petty." I looked at her. "No. Petty is calling me coupon king in a family chat while your family accepts money that partly came from me." Her mouth closed. Evan looked up. Marissa's voice came low and tight. "You're humiliating me." That sentence almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because the nerve of it was breathtaking. "I'm humiliating you?" I asked. "Tonight is not the time." "When was the time?" "When your dad joked that you paid for my dinner. When your brother called me your dependent. When your mom said you married kindness instead of ambition. When you told them you carry more of the weight." Her eyes flashed. "I do carry a lot. I never said you didn't. You earn more than I do. I have never denied that. I have never been ashamed of that. The issue was never that you earn more, Marissa. The issue is that you let them believe earning less made me worth less." Nobody moved. I took my napkin off my lap and placed it on the table. Richard said, "You're making money vulgar." "No," I said. "Money became vulgar when you used it to decide whether I deserved basic respect." The server passed near the table, saw the tension, and turned around like a smart man. I pulled out enough cash to cover my meal and set it beside my plate. I didn't calculate it perfectly. That wasn't the point. I just didn't want anyone saying Marissa paid for my exit too. Marissa whispered, "Leon, sit down." I was already standing. "I provided quietly because I thought family didn't need a receipt," I said. I was wrong about the family part. Trevor's face was red. Diane stared at the flowers in the center of the table like she could set them on fire with her mind. Richard's hand was wrapped around his wineglass so tightly I thought the stem might snap. I looked at Marissa last. I'm done paying for a seat at a table where I'm treated like a charity case. Then I left. No shouting. No slammed door. No dramatic speech in the parking lot. Just me, the cold night air, and a valet who handed me my keys without making eye contact. Marissa called before I was even out of the parking lot. I let it ring. Then came the texts. You embarrassed me. How could you do that in front of everyone? You made my parents look awful. Answer your phone. I drove home in silence. When I got there, I changed out of the shirt she liked, put water in the kettle, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open. For the first time, I didn't open the folder to reassure myself I wasn't crazy. I opened it because I was done pretending. I wrote Marissa one message. From now on, anything involving your family and money happens in writing. I'm not sending, covering, lending, or helping quietly anymore. You also need to correct what you let them believe about our marriage. If that embarrasses you, ask yourself why the truth sounds worse than the lie you allowed. I hit send. She didn't reply for 20 minutes. Then, you went too far. I typed back, no? I finally stopped going along. She came home after midnight. I heard her key in the door, the slow, careful way she set down her purse, the pause before she walked into the kitchen. I was still sitting there. Her makeup was slightly smudged under one eye, but she looked more angry than sad. You made me look horrible in front of my family, she said. You did that. I never said you don't contribute. You let them say it. That's not the same thing. It is when you smiled. She crossed her arms. You kept records? I looked at her for a long second. That's what bothers you? Not the fact that I needed them. Her face changed, but only a little. You exposed private things, she said. You shared private things first. You just shared them in a way that made you look better. She looked toward the window over the sink. Outside, the glass reflected both of us back into the kitchen, her standing stiff in her dress, me sitting in a plain t-shirt, exhausted. You don't understand what it's like with them, she said. I understand more than you think. She turned back. Meaning what? I didn't answer then because my phone buzzed. It was Evan. I almost ignored it, but his text preview made my stomach drop. Evan, I'm sorry. You should see this. Then he sent screenshots. I opened them. At first, I thought it was just more of the usual. Family chat. Side comments. Diane's polished cruelty in text form. Then I read the first message. Diane, Marissa, you need to keep the account simple. If Leon feels like he has equal say, he'll slow everything down. Sabrina, he likes peace more than pride. Use that. Trevor, I don't care how it's framed as long as the down payment isn't delayed. Diane, then frame it as family. If he feels small enough, he won't object. My hand went cold. I scrolled. Marissa, he won't fight me if we frame it as family. I read it twice. Then a third time. Marissa was watching me. What is that? She asked, but her voice had already gone flat. She knew. I turned the phone toward her. She didn't deny it. That was worse than any denial. I asked how long. She swallowed. Leon, how long have you been letting them use this on purpose? It wasn't like that. I laughed once. It is exactly like that. It is written down. She sat across from me slowly. Trevor needed help, she said. Trevor wanted a housing payment. It was important to him. And making me feel too small to question it was important to you. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't move toward her. A year earlier, I would have. I would have softened the moment she cried. I would have decided the conversation was getting too harsh. I would have rescued her from the consequences of her own words. Not that night. She said, my family respects strength. No, your family respects control. That's not fair. What part? The part where your mother said to keep me feeling small, or the part where you agreed? She wiped under her eye. I didn't want another fight about money. We never had fights about money. We had conversations you avoided by making me the problem. She looked down. I put my phone on the table between us. You didn't protect me because the lie made you look good. She said nothing. That silence was different from mine. Mine had been survival. Hers was admission. The next morning, I made 2 appointments. One was with a marriage counselor. The other was with an attorney. I wasn't filing for divorce that day. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't storming out, emptying accounts, or trying to punish her. But I had spent years trusting that love meant I didn't need protection inside my own marriage. I no longer believed that. The attorney was calm, practical, and not impressed by drama. I appreciated that. I brought a folder with bank statements, messages, and notes. She explained what I should document, what I should not touch, and how to protect myself without doing anything reckless. She told me to keep communication in writing when it involved family money and not to make threats I wasn't prepared to follow through on. At the end, she asked, "What outcome do you want?" I stared at the folder in my lap. "I'm not trying to punish her," I said. "I'm trying to stop being used." "That's a good reason to be precise," she said. So I became precise. I separated certain personal finances that should have never been blurred with her family's needs. I changed passwords Marissa's tablet had saved. I removed my card from a couple of shared convenience accounts her family had access to for emergencies. I made a list of every recurring thing I was covering that somehow turned into Marissa being generous. Then I sent Marissa another message. "We can talk about our marriage and counseling. But before that happens, 3 things need to change. First, your family gets the truth. Second, our private finances stay private. Third, no money goes to them from me, through me, or because of me. If you want to help them from your personal funds, that is your choice, but I will not be hidden inside your generosity anymore." She didn't answer for hours. Her family answered for her. Richard called. I didn't pick up. He texted, "You owe Marissa and this family an apology." Diane texted too. "You turned a beautiful evening into a display of bitterness. I hope you're proud." Sabrina sent one message. "If it wasn't true, it wouldn't bother you." Trevor sent the most honest one. "So now everything is delayed because you had to make a point?" I looked at that one for a long time. Then I replied, "So the man who never contributes was somehow holding up your plan?" He didn't answer. That felt better than it should have. For the next few days, the family tone shifted in strange ways. Richard still acted offended, but he stopped making jokes about my income. Diane sent Marissa long messages about marital unity, which was rich coming from a woman who had advised her daughter to keep me insecure. Sabrina tried to spin the whole thing as me being fragile. But Evan had sent screenshots to more than just me. Not the entire family. He wasn't trying to burn everything down. But a couple of relatives saw enough to realize the dinner hadn't been random. One of Marissa's aunts texted me privately and said, "I'm sorry. I should have said something that night." It was the first apology I got from anyone in her family. I didn't know what to do with it, so I just wrote, "Thank you." Marissa avoided me around the house for 2 days. We moved like roommates. She made coffee and didn't pour me a cup. I folded laundry and left hers in the basket. At night, she slept turned away from me, and I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how long a marriage could survive on habit after respect had been drained out of it. On the 3rd night, she came into the kitchen while I was eating leftover pasta from a bowl. "We need to talk," she said. I nodded. She sat across from me. No makeup, no polished family smile, just tired. "I showed my mom the screenshots Evan sent you," she said. "And?" She said he took things out of context. I waited. Marissa rubbed her hands together. I told her there wasn't a context that made it okay. That was the first thing she had said that sounded like accountability instead of damage control. I didn't reward it with comfort. I just listened. She said, "I liked how they saw me." There it was. Small, ugly, honest. "I know," I said. Her eyes watered. I didn't think of it that way at first. It was just they've always measured everything. When I was the one doing better, they praised me. And I liked not being the one they judged. "So you let them judge me?" She nodded. The nod hurt more than an argument would have. "I told myself you didn't care," she said. "Because you never pushed back. You don't get to use my silence as proof I had nothing to say." She closed her eyes. "I know." I leaned back in my chair. "Do you?" "Yes. Because this isn't about who earns more. I need you to understand that. I would have been proud of you forever. I was proud of you. I never wanted to compete with you." "I know." "No. You knew I wouldn't compete with you. That's different." She looked down at the table. I continued. "You let them turn our marriage into a scoreboard because you were winning on it." She started crying then, quietly, not the kind of crying meant to end the conversation. I let her cry. When she could speak again, she said, "What do you want me to do?" "The truth." She nodded. "I can talk to them." "No. Not a phone call where everyone gets to reinterpret it later. Put it in the group chat." Her face tightened. I almost smiled because there it was again. Image. The public version mattered more than the private wound. If the lie was public, I said, the correction can be public too. She didn't answer right away. Then she picked up her phone. I watched her type, delete, type again, stop, breathe, and type more. It took her nearly 20 minutes. When she finally turned the phone toward me, the message said, "I need to correct something. Leon has contributed to this marriage and to this family in ways I did not make clear. Some of the help you believed came only from me did not. I allowed jokes about him that were unfair and disrespectful, and I should have stopped them. Going forward, our finances are private, and nobody should ask either of us for money or make comments about who earns what." I read it twice. "Send it," I said. Her thumb hovered over the screen. For one terrible second, I thought she wouldn't. Then she did. The response was immediate silence. That might not sound dramatic, but in Marissa's family, silence was an explosion. No jokes, no hearts, no Diane saying, "Well said." No Richard pretending to be above it. Just nothing. Then Evan replied, "Thank you for saying it." A minute later, Marissa's aunt wrote, "This needed to be said." Sabrina left the chat for 6 minutes, then came back, probably after realizing leaving made her look guilty. Trevor texted Marissa privately. "I didn't ask to see it. I didn't need to. I saw her face." "What?" I asked. She swallowed. "He asked if this means we're not helping." I laughed quietly. Not because it was funny, because it was perfect. Marissa typed back while I watched. "Yes, it means we are not helping." Then she put the phone face down on the table. Richard called her 3 times that night. She didn't answer until the next morning. When she finally did, she put him on speaker without me asking. His voice filled the kitchen, clipped and cold. "Your husband has turned you against your family." Marissa closed her eyes. "No, Dad. I let my family disrespect my husband. He embarrassed us. You embarrassed yourselves." I looked at her then. That was the first time in years I heard her protect me when it cost her something. Diane got on the line. "Marissa, honey, nobody meant harm. Leon is sensitive about certain realities." Marissa's voice shook, but she didn't back down. "The reality is that Leon helped you when you needed it, and you still let people mock him. That was between family. He is family." Diane went quiet. I won't pretend that fixed everything. It didn't. Marissa and I started counseling, but I made it clear in the first session that I was not there to learn how to tolerate disrespect more gracefully. I was there to see if trust could be rebuilt after being used as camouflage. The counselor asked Marissa what she thought the central issue was. Marissa looked at me, then said, "I used his patience against him." I didn't forgive her in that moment, but I believed she understood the shape of what she had done. That was something. Her family reacted exactly how people react when the person they underestimated removes access. Richard became formal. Diane became wounded. Sabrina became philosophical on social media without naming anyone. Trevor became suddenly very quiet because his housing plan stalled without the family help he had expected Marissa to pressure out of me. A month later, he texted me directly for the first time since the dinner. "Hey man, I know things got tense. Can we talk?" I replied, "About what?" He waited 10 minutes. "The money situation." I wrote back, "No." That was the whole message. No explanation. No apology cushion. No "I wish I could." No offer to talk later. Just no. He didn't respond. For years, I had believed a boundary needed to be wrapped in enough softness that no one could accuse me of being cruel. Now I understood that people committed to using you will call any locked door cruel. So I stopped decorating the door. Marissa's relationship with her family changed too. Not overnight. Not cleanly. She still flinched when Diane got cold. She still wanted to explain herself to Richard, but she stopped feeding them pieces of our marriage to win approval. When Diane asked at a brunch, "Are finances still a sensitive topic?" Marissa said, "They're private, not sensitive." When Sabrina joked, "I guess we can't tease Leon anymore," Marissa said, "No, you can't." When Richard tried one last time with, "A man should be able to take a joke," I said, "A man can. A husband doesn't have to take disrespect from people who need him quiet." He didn't like that. I didn't need him to. The strange thing is, once I stopped trying to earn their respect, I could finally see how little it was worth in the first place. Their approval had always been conditional. If I was quiet, I was acceptable. If I helped, I was useful. If I objected, I was ungrateful. That wasn't family. That was a transaction where only one side was allowed to know the price. Marissa and I are not magically healed. We still have separate protections in place. Some finances remain divided, and any conversation involving her family happens in writing. Counseling is slow and uncomfortable. Some nights we talk honestly. Some nights there is too much silence between us. But the silence is different now. It is no longer me swallowing disrespect to keep peace. It is space where the truth is finally allowed to sit. Marissa has apologized more than once, and not in the vague way people apologize when they want the consequences to end. She has said, "I let them humiliate you because it made me feel powerful." She has said, "I should have corrected them years ago." She has said, "You didn't know me quiet." Those words do not erase what happened, but they matter because they are specific. As for her family, the invitations slowed down. The jokes stopped. The money requests vanished. Funny how quickly people learn manners when access closes. The last time we saw Richard and Diane, it was at a small family lunch. Nothing fancy. No speeches. No wineglass lifted like a weapon. Richard barely spoke to me at first. Diane was overly polite in that brittle way that feels like a performance. Sabrina stayed mostly on her phone. Trevor didn't come. Near the end, Richard cleared his throat and said, "Leon, I may have been too casual with some comments." It was not a real apology. It was a man trying to step over a mess without admitting he made it. Olmi would have accepted it just to make the table breathe again. Numi took a sip of water and said, "You were disrespectful. Casual is not the word." Marissa went still beside me. Richard's face tightened. Then he nodded once. "You're right," he said. Diane looked like she had swallowed a lemon. I didn't need more from him that day. I didn't need a speech or a confession. I needed him to understand that the old rules were gone. On the way home, Marissa said, "Thank you for not making that worse." I looked out the window for a moment before answering. I didn't make it worse. I told the truth calmly. She nodded. "You did." Then, after a pause, she said, "I'm sorry I made you feel like truth was something you had to hide." That one stayed with me. Because that was exactly what had happened. For years, I hid the truth to protect her pride. I let people call me lucky while they took from the same hands they mocked. I let my wife enjoy a version of our marriage where she stood taller because everyone had agreed to make me small. I don't do that anymore. I don't need to earn more than my wife to deserve respect. I don't need her family to admire me. I don't need a toast, a thank you, or a seat at a table where kindness is treated like weakness. What I needed was to stop confusing peace with being quiet. And once I did, the people who had been laughing finally had to hear me. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.